We offer you deep historical information from history on YouTube channel. Subscribe. Now don't forget to turn on notifications. Prelude to Revolution. Iraq's fragmented landscape. Iraq, a land steeped in ancient history and cultural heritage, emerged from the ashes of the Ottoman Empire as a British mandate in 1920. The tumultuous years that followed were marred by political instability, ethnic tensions, and the struggle for self-determination. Saddam Hussein, a meteoric ascent. Born in 1937 in the impoverished village of Al-Auja, Saddam Hussein rose through the ranks of the Baath Party with unwavering ambition. In 1979, he seized power in a bloodless coup, becoming the 5th president of Iraq. Consolidation of power, a reign of fear. Hussein's early years in office were characterized by a ruthless consolidation of power. He established a vast security apparatus that instilled fear and suspicion throughout Iraqi society. Dissidents were eliminated, and the media was tightly controlled. The Iran-Iraq War, a costly conflict. In 1980, Hussein launched a disastrous invasion of neighboring Iran, culminating in a bloody 8-year war. The conflict devastated Iraq's economy and claimed the lives of hundreds of thousands of soldiers and civilians, chemical weapons, and the Anfal campaign. Amidst the carnage of the Iran-Iraq War, Saddam Hussein's regime committed heinous crimes against its own people. In 1988, Iraqi forces used chemical weapons against Kurdish villages in the Anfal campaign, killing thousands of innocent civilians. The Gulf War, a devastating setback. In 1990, Hussein ordered the invasion of Kuwait, provoking an international outcry. A US-led coalition responded with Operation Desert Storm, a swift and decisive military campaign that expelled Iraqi forces from Kuwait. Post-Gulf War era, sanctions and isolation. Following the Gulf War, Iraq faced severe sanctions and international isolation. Hussein's regime became increasingly repressive and mismanaged the country's vast oil wealth, leaving its people impoverished. Invasion of Iraq, toppling a dictator. In 2003, the United States and its allies invaded Iraq, overthrowing Hussein's government. The invasion was justified by claims that Iraq possessed weapons of mass destruction, but none were ever found. Post-invasion Iraq, chaos and instability. The post-invasion era in Iraq was fraught with chaos, violence, and sectarian strife. US forces struggled to establish order, and the country was plunged into a bloody insurgency that lasted for years. Trial and execution, a controversial end. In 2006, Saddam Hussein was captured and put on trial for war crimes and crimes against humanity. He was sentenced to death by hanging and was executed on December 30, 2006. The legacy of Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein's reign of terror left an enduring scar on Iraq. His legacy is one of brutality, corruption, and international isolation. The country is still struggling to recover from the trauma of his dictatorship and the aftermath of the 2003 invasion. The Baathist regime and social transformation. Under Hussein's Baathist regime, Iraq underwent significant social and economic changes. The government pursued a policy of Arab socialism, nationalized key industries, and expanded access to healthcare and education. Despite these efforts, the country remained deeply divided along ethnic and sectarian lines. The regime's repressive tactics alienated large segments of the population, particularly the Shia majority and the Kurdish minority. International relations and regional influence. Hussein's foreign policy was characterized by a mix of confrontation and diplomacy. He pursued an aggressive stance toward neighbors such as Iran and Kuwait, but also sought to improve relations with Western powers in the 1980s. Iraq played a major role in the Arab-Israeli conflict, supporting Palestinian aspirations and opposing Israeli expansionism. Hussein's support for radical groups, such as the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, alienated Western governments. The role of oil and economic growth. Oil played a pivotal role in Iraq's economy and political power dynamics. Hussein's regime exploited the country's vast oil reserves to fund its military buildup and social programs. However, the mismanagement of oil revenues, corruption, and international sanctions crippled the economy in the later years of Hussein's rule. The country's infrastructure crumbled and basic services deteriorated. The Kurdish question and ethnic tensions. The Kurdish question was a persistent source of conflict and instability in Iraq. The Kurdish minority, concentrated in the north of the country, sought greater autonomy and recognition of their cultural and linguistic rights. Hussein's regime suppressed Kurdish aspirations with military force, leading to bloody uprisings and a campaign of ethnic cleansing known as the Anfal campaign. The Kurdish question remains unresolved, with sporadic clashes and political tensions continuing to plague post-Hussein Iraq. The Shia majority and religious oppression. The Shia majority in Iraq faced discrimination and persecution under Hussein's Sunni-dominated Baathist regime. Shia clerics were arrested or exiled, and religious practices were restricted. Hussein's regime also targeted religious minorities, such as Christians and Yazidis. Sectarian tensions escalated during the post-invasion era, leading to cycles of violence and displacement. Conclusion: a troubled legacy. Saddam Hussein's reign of terror left an indelible mark on Iraq. His brutality, corruption, and mismanagement of the country's resources plunged Iraq into chaos and instability. The legacy of Hussein's dictatorship, the 2003 invasion, and the subsequent insurgency continues to shape Iraq's political, social, and economic landscape. The country faces ongoing challenges of sectarianism, corruption, and the need for reconciliation and accountability. We offer you deep historical information from History on YouTube channel. Subscribe. Now don't forget to turn on notifications.